Hello, everyone. It is that time of the month where I'm going to do my August wrap up, and we're going to go over the ones that I did and did not read for my August TBR that I did for my TBR jar video, which, if you didn't watch, go check it out to see what books I was supposed to read and what prompts were picked for that. So we had a pretty decent month. I read 9 books. Out of my TBR, I only picked 6 because since my kids were starting school back up, I didn't think that I was gonna get to read that much, and apparently I did read some. One, of course, though, was a graphic novel, which I have never done before, so that is something new to do. I'm also in PJs because it is September. It is time for fall to come. I am ready for it to get a little more cold and chilly, so we will see about that. But yes, so the 6 books that were in my August TBR were, what was it called? I already forgot one. It was a book of the month one. It was pink. It was my daughter's pick. I will have to look it up. I'll post the picture for that one, but I did not get to that one. And then technically, I'm currently reading A Crown of Midnight, which was one. So that's obviously not in this one, but it is currently being read. So it'll be a part of my September wrap up so far. And then I did DNF, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I read, I think, like 50 to 100 pages of this, and I just couldn't get into it. I just did not care. This is supposed to have 3 point of views. Somewhere along the way, there's supposed to be vampires, but to me, this book just felt dragged on, boring, and I just did not want to waste my time reading 400 or 500 pages of this book. So I read another book instead in between this while trying to read this one, and I just couldn't do it. I know a ton of people love this book. I can't. I just didn't see the point. I didn't like it. The stories just were not what I wanted to read and stuff. So no hate to those who love this book. I just could not get into it and could not continue. It just was so boring to me. So this is my DNF, only DNF of August, I believe. I think so, yeah. Only DNF of August. The rest were read. I don't have 3 of them because I did return them back to the library because they were overdue. And I try not to keep them too long, but then sometimes I do if I know I'm gonna, if I can pull it out a little longer, I try to, but sometimes I'm like, I can't. So I don't physically have them, but I'm still gonna obviously talk about them. So the graphic novel is this one. This is The Last Ronin. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but kind of farther into the future and stuff. This is actually my husband's book. He is big into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff, and I told him that after Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil that I was struggling to kind of get in the mood to read, and he said, well, try this. He's like, it's different. He's like, you got the graphics and stuff, trying to show you ones where it won't spoil the story. You got some graphics in it. He's like, try it, maybe you'll like it better and stuff. So I was like, okay. So for this, I gave it a 4-star. I think that it was good and interesting for what it was in the story and how it progressed and stuff. There was some stuff where, for me, I think I would have liked it better as a movie or show or something, right? Because physically seeing this one for me would have been better with the action and the fighting and all that. But there were some surprising twists in it that I was like, oh. And then kind of going from present to the past, it was a little confusing. So it was interesting, but there's some parts where I'm just I struggled. But if you're a big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think you'll like it. Um, there's some good references and stuff, and like the graphics are really good for this one. So we'll say that. And then random book that my kids threw in for me to read was A Game of Fate. This one was not on my TBR, neither was The Last Ronin. This one is a Hades and Persephone retelling, but this is the one in Hades' perspective, and I wasn't sure if I needed to read the one where it was in Persephone's perspective first, but I just went ahead and read it. I've had this book for a while, and I did read it previously and then just stopped, and I don't know why, if I was just busy or didn't really get into the story. But this one wasn't too bad. Let me see what I gave it real quick. 3.5. It was pretty interesting, pretty good. I did like seeing Hades' side and how, like, as gods, they were dealing with their own trouble and issues and stuff. And like I said, I didn't read Persephone's book, so I don't know if it, like, has a slight mention of what was going on in Hades' book or if she was dealing with her own stuff on her side. I don't know. I did say, though, that the one thing that kind of took away is that kind of closer to the end, it was just spicy scene after spicy scene after spicy scene, and that's all that mattered, which kind of took away from everything else that was kind of going on in the book. So it kind of defeated the purpose. And then, of course, there's like a second act breakup kind of thing, and it got resolved really quickly and fast, and like it was weird and stuff. So it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but I did read this. That was not on my list. And then we're gonna do King of Envy. This was also not on my August TBR, but I devoured this. This was great. This was also in between Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This is the book I read instead. And I was more interested in reading this than that. And again, that tells me that I just was not gonna read that. That one was dragging hard. But this one is Anna Huang's King of Sin series. This is book number 5. I still have not read the first book, but I've read 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and now 5th. This is the most recent one that has been out or has come out. This one's about Vuk. I don't know how to say his last name. And then Ayana, I think is how you say her name. But basically Vuk, he's been in the last few series. He's silent, he's mute, he doesn't talk. He has scars and stuff that you learn about how he got them and stuff in this book. But he's a billionaire, CEO of a company and stuff. But he is basically pining after Ayana, who is a supermodel in New York, popular one, but she is engaged to Vuk's best friend, Jordan. And so she's off limits and stuff, but Vuk wants Ayana, and Ayana technically is engaged to Jordan, and they're trying to keep it real because Jordan has an inheritance he's trying to get, and Ayana needs money from Jordan's inheritance once they get married and stay married for 5 years. And so it's very interesting. Like I said, the problem is that there's so much like miscommunication and a perceived kind of almost like cheating trope, but it's not because of the circumstances. But like since they don't communicate about it, like Ayana doesn't say anything to the Vuk. Vuk doesn't know any better that it's not a real engagement and stuff, because again they're trying to make it seem real because they're in the spotlight. Because the Jordan guy's in a prestigious family as well that has a lot of money. But it wasn't bad. There was some what is it? Something criminal going on. I'm trying to remember. I think it's like gang wars kind of like going on. It's like part of, so there's this group called the Brotherhood. They're kind of like a gang, and Vuk was associated with them when he was younger, but like they broke ties kind of, and like they're scared of him, but now they're coming after him, and of course anyone close to him, and so he's trying to take care of it and all that other fun stuff. And so it had a lot of action and crime and stuff going on. But yeah, so this one I believe I gave a 4-star, just because the trope where she's engaged to someone else, even though it's a fake engagement, was just and the communication was so there is that. So that wasn't part of my thing. Another one that was not part of mine. Like I said, a lot of ones that were not part of my August TBR are here, but some of them are still. So another one is called Penitence by Kristen Koval. This is a book of the month book that I got. I had my husband randomly pick one because I said, here, look at the prompts on here and just pick me one. And this was his pick. And it was a while before I read it. My daughter picked it up for me. This one is, it's interesting, but like the pacing was so slow. This one only got a 2.75 for me because it was so slow. The chapters were long and it just felt like it was dragging out the storyline and like stuff, because it talked about basically the story for this one is basically Angie and her husband David, they're experiencing the fact that their daughter murdered their son, and so now they need help because they want to protect their daughter who is still alive, but of course also find out why she got rid of their son, or her brother, why she killed her brother. Basically they try to hire this lawyer. They're in a small town in Colorado, which I found funny because I am in Colorado. But they're in a small town, so they don't have a lot of options for lawyers. They find one lady who Angie knew as a child, but she doesn't do criminal defense and stuff. But her son, Julian, does, but he's in New York, and him and Angie had a past. And so you kind of get glimpses into Angie and Julian's past, and then the present with what's going on. And like I said, it just dragged on really like long and like took forever. And there was one part where I was like, ooh, I have a feeling that this is something, and I was right. And I was like, but it's like annoying. Like there's so much in this book that like emotionally I'm just like, this bugs me so bad. But like I said, I read it. It's like I said, it's just so long and dragged out, and I wish some of it was just a little faster, or like the parts of it were moved and put like different and stuff. So this was another book that was not on my TBR, but I did do and stuff. So now for my TBR, like I said, I had DNF'd Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I did not get to the one that has the pink, that is a book of the month book that I have to look at because I don't remember its title at all, which is so funny. And then I am currently reading Crown of Midnight. So there was, now I'm confused. I had 6, didn't I? 3, and then technically, oh, okay. I had to stop. I was like, wait a minute, I picked 6, but how do I have 2 here and then 3 to talk about? So, ones that I picked that were not in the TBR jar prompt were Serpent of the Nights and Wings. Is that how you pronounce it? Serpent and the Wings of Night. I keep butchering that name so badly. Like, I have to look at it. I know the main part is Serpent, Wings, Night. But the words, the little parts that connect it, I keep messing up for some reason. I don't know why. But That one was part of my August TBR, but not like from the TBR jar. Those were just books that I was finishing up from July into August. So that one was one. That one I gave a 4.5. I really liked the story and it was interesting, and I liked the trials because it wasn't like a lot of these trial books are just like, oh, your purpose is this, and first one there wins, or the first 10 wins and stuff like that, right? This one was more of like, you have an idea of when the next one's gonna happen, but you don't know what it is. You don't know how to finish it and complete it 100%. You have to figure things out for yourself and things like that. And so it was really interesting. And then this one had to do with vampires, but there was like 3 kinds. There's one where their wings were like bat-like wings. There's ones where their wings were feathers. And then there's ones where they can somehow control your blood. Like if you're bleeding, they can like go in and like Avatar, Airbender kind of stuff, right? And so then there's the main character whose name I can't remember right now because, like I said, I read that in the beginning of August and finished it and liked it. But she was a mortal. She was one of the only mortals to compete. She grew up under the ruling of a vampire prince or king, and the whole purpose was that she was gonna win. Once you win, you can get whatever wish you want, and then basically her wish was gonna be kind of to become this like courtier for the vampire king that she was with, to where they like combine life forces so she would live a long time like him, and he would get like her as the person who like helps him kind of. I don't know, like there's some stuff that it's still questionable and stuff, and there's magic involved, but like it's not fully explained. It's just like, hey, certain people have this stuff and she has magic, but she's like, oh my god, I didn't know I had weak magic, and now certain things make it where it goes boom. So, but it was pretty interesting. The ending was a very big shock to me and stuff, and I can see like it's trying to lead up to what it's trying to lead up to for the second book, but I'm also not in like this big old rush to read the second book because of course it didn't leave on like a cliffhanger. It just leads up to, hey, this is what's probably going to happen in the second book. So there is that. Another book that was on my August TBR but not in the TBR jar was a nonfiction book, which was In Search for the Soul, right? In Search of the Soul. Blah, blah. In Search of the Soul. That one is a nonfiction book. I generally don't rate those ones. Fable, I really wish they would stop making it where I have to rate it on there because it's so annoying, because I keep having to do 3 stars because I'm like, I want to give it more, but I don't want to say less because I don't want to rate it in general, but I don't know how to not rate it on there still. So that's confusing. But that one is basically a theological reasoning about like how to find the soul. Talking about basically like, what's the philosophical, that's the word, not theology, theological. But there are parts that are talking about theological or religious like explanation. So it's mainly philosophy, but it's also religious. And then they briefly also touch on like, the author touches on scientific like basis and stuff. And a lot of it is just like, it's giving you information of like what this person said, but like giving you arguments about like why it might not fully work or why it can't fully be that way and stuff. So there's no like concrete answer basically at the end of the book. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like you get these different perspectives and you kind of get to decide what one you agree with or disagree with and stuff. So I kind of like that you get that option. I will say that if it wasn't for me having philosophy classes back in college and like theology class and stuff, that I probably would have struggled way worse with understanding this. And even with that, I had to read over paragraphs over and over again because it just was a little, the writing was a little complex to the point where I couldn't fully like grasp it. So this is not like a beginner's book. This is like, hey, if you haven't had like philosophy classes or theology classes and stuff like that, you're gonna struggle, because I struggled. And like I said, I did take those classes. Yes, they were years ago, but I still remember some of it. But still, years ago. So, not bad, not great. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the other book that I don't have but had to return. This one was on my August TBR from my TBR jar pick, which is Temple of Swoon. This was the second book in the Raiders of the Lost Heart book series. Don't know what the series is actually called, but it's the second book from that. I read that one, I think, back in July, and I think I gave it like a 3.5. That one was pretty good and interesting. This one was supposed to be a continuation of a series, and I wanted to add it because I was like, let me have a fun, easy romance, right? That has a little bit of adventure action. And this one follows basically, the first book had Corey and Ford, and basically this one follows Corey's kind of assistant or like protege, the person who's like looks up to her and like follows her, named Miri or Miriam, but she goes by Miri. She's now going to lead an expedition for the very first time. She's never done it. She's kind of more of a shy, quiet one, but she's trying to live up to the example of her mentor, Corey. And plus, she kind of got threatened for her job that, hey, if you don't bring anything big discovery, you might not be here. And she works as a college professor at like a big college, like Berkeley, I think it was, or something like that. And so she's like, okay, I gotta do this for my job and for this. So she's supposed to go on this big expedition. I don't know why I said it that way. Expedition to go find the City of the Moon, or Moon City, something like that. And basically, it's a place where no one's found it, no one's discovered it, it's hidden, it's protected, all this. And then there's a journalist named Raphael, I believe it was, and he went by Rafa and stuff, and he was told by his dad that he needed to go to document this, but also protect it because his mom is an ancestor. So his dad is trying to have him stop the Miriam or Mary girl from finding it. And so he's supposed to try to help it. He doesn't know enough about his mom. His mom died when he was like young, a baby, I think. And so he's like, oh, okay, like I have to stop it. Like all this, protect it. Things are happening. There's a bad guy from the first book who came back, and he's trying to find the city as well. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. But like, this book was so much more boring than the first one. The first one was a little more interesting. It had a better banter. The Miriam girl, she kept saying what would, it was like WWCMD. So what would Corey Mayhew do? Right? And it was so annoying because like it was so consistent. Like she was trying to be adventurous. She was trying to do this. She's trying to be like her mentor, Corey. And I was like, you get it. Stop. Right? And then another thing that was a little weird is that like people talk about like pet nicknames in books, and this one, her nickname that the Rafa guy gave her was Pringles. And there's a story behind it, but like I couldn't get behind it. It was just so weird. It's like, hey Pringles, and she's like, hi, and it's like, that just doesn't sound interesting and fun. And so that one I only gave just a 3-star. It was still good, still interesting. The ending kind of made it better with what was going on and stuff, the plot and all that. I know there's another one that's out. I don't remember what that one's called. I think it was called Lust Crusade or something. It was something weird like that. But I don't know if I want to read that or even look for that one because, like I said, this one was hard. The first one was better, but like not by much. So I don't know. That's how I feel for that one. Next was the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. This was part of the TBR jar pick. And this one was, what did I give it? Give this one a 3. So this one wasn't too bad, but it also wasn't too great. This one has it where, what's her name? Gianni. I suck at this name. Certain names, I just need them to pronounce it like for me. So I don't get this one. But she's basically tasked with coming and running her aunt's cafe, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, because her aunt's retiring and she worked a busy job as a CEO. And basically she found her boss dead and he was overworking and stuff, and she doesn't want to end up like that to where she's overworked and dies at office where no one's gonna really care. So she's trying to reinvent herself for this cafe. It's in a small town. She's been there a little bit before, but not really. And she's hearing noises in the back of the cafe and she's getting spooked. And then she finds out one day that it one of the times is a local farmer by the name of Logan, who he had a big breakup that was kind of well known in the town. And so he is not interested in love. He doesn't care for love. So he wants to avoid Gianni. I don't know how the frick to pronounce her name. It's gonna bug me now. He wants to avoid her, kind of not being around her, but people are putting them together, even though they're warning the girl to stay away from Logan because they don't want to see his heart broken. And it's not bad, but it was lacking a lot of depth. They got together and then like he saw stuff and he freaked out and stuff and like basically dumped her right then and there. And then she had a lot going on to where like, again, she was having sounds happen at the back of her thing. And at first it was a cat, and then later on other weird stuff is happening to where she's starting to doubt herself as a business owner and stuff. And it was cute for the small town vibes, but like the romance was like kind of lacking a little bit. It was like there's not much talk and connection and like similarities and stuff like that. So it was one of those things where it wasn't bad, it was alright, but not the greatest. So that one was what, book 3 or 4 I think on the TBR. And then I saved the best for last. So this was also on it. This was my much anticipated favorite author, or like well liked author, which is the newest book, The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I loved her One Dark Window. Still need to read 2 Windows? 2 Shepherds. 2 Twisted Crowns. That's the name. Words are popping up in my head. It's the Shepherd King's duology, but it's 2 Twisted Crowns. But this was from that author, different series. But first off, let's admire the pretty cover, and then and then even too, I loved having it where this, loved it. This was a 5-star read, and I kept seeing so many people give it a 5-star read, and I was so excited, and I started it, and then at first, like 20-30 pages, I was like, I don't see it. Like, I was like, some of it, I was like, this is weird, this is confusing, why do people love it? And then I kept going, and it got so much better, and I loved it. And the ending, again, is, she always leaves you with these giant cliffhangers and crazy stuff going on, to where now I have to wait however long for the next one, because there will be a next one. Do I know if it's a duology? No, but it's crazy. And then also too, my favorite is the gargoyle in this book, the bat one. So funny. I love the lines from it. I'm gonna have to like reread this just so I can find the quotes, because there's so many quotes from that gargoyle that was just hilarious, made me laugh out loud. Loved it. So good. But yes, this was a 5-star, if I didn't say that already. The best one by far. By far. Loved it. So like I said, I did pretty good. Like I said, I didn't read all of my TBR from the month of August, but I read most of them. Technically, it'll be like, so it's like 3 out of 6. One was a DNF, so that one's technically out, so it would be like 3 out of 5. But one I am still currently reading right now. And like I said, I gotta figure out what that other one is. It's gonna drive me bonkers. So bad. But I didn't do too bad for that. And then like I said, I added a bunch of different ones. And a lot of them too were different books or different kind of genres, kind of. Because like I said, The Penitence was kind of more, not really mystery, but kind of like crime fiction and stuff. And Remorse and Guilt and all this other stuff. Like I said, The Last Ronin was my first graphic novel. That one had a lot of kind of post-apocalyptic fighting going on and stuff. And then, of course, some of the other ones, The Search of the Soul, nonfiction. Trying to make sure I still do some nonfiction here and there. So there is that. So those are the books I read in the month of August. Tell me which ones you've read. Tell me if you agree or have read any of the ones that I have read. And if you agree with my thoughts or if you disagree and stuff. I don't mind if we talk and stuff about that. And then let me know what your September reads are going to be, if you planned, like if you do a September TBR, or if you're just like, I go with the flow, mood read or going with the flow. I already have my September TBR video up, so make sure you also look at that to see what I plan on hopefully reading in September, and we'll see how many of those I am going to stick with and get to. Crown Midnight is definitely on there, even though it's, I think, only briefly mentioned in the video, but we will see. But again, if you like the video and all that, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video soon, hopefully. But bye, and have a great fall season.